And they had a real shot at winning game number 1. If history proves anything, that means they're going to win game number 2. Let's head into picks and bans for these teams right now.
Splyce in that first pick slot, just like they were in the last game. I wonder what sort of adjustment they are going to make, because I don't think that you can just kind of let CLG run back that exact same composition. It did enough. It wasn't one of those games where it's like, well, we just made one mistake here and that's the entire reason why we lost. Yes, Splyce definitely made some mistakes that opened the door back up for CLG, but I wouldn't be surprised if Splyce not necessarily ban Apollo, but just work their draft a little bit differently to be able to handle it better.
Right. And again, one of the more important things about picking the weird stuff is making sure that you can actually handle it. I don't think the best has an Apollo.
No.
We're not going to see
Like I said,
Apollo
he plays the same 3-4 gods, and I don't think Apollo is one of those right now.
No, absolutely not. So I don't want to see Splyce go ahead and do that. And you know, it's interesting. I don't even really want to see CycloneSpin play the Apollo. I want to see him stick to those really late-game hunters, which, at the end of the day, with Audacity, Apollo can be one of those late-game hunters, but the traditional Ram, Artemis, Shibalanke is kind of really where I want to see him stay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that go back to just what you were just saying as well, those later-game hunters. And I wonder if Splyce is going to go back to the Agni here. This was the exact same first 4 bans from Splyce and CLG, and Agni was the first pick, and this doesn't surprise me. I don't think this was necessarily the problem. The best got off to, God, I hate that, the best start overall in the mid lane, the most optimal start. You're messing with the banner, Tom. You moved it earlier on.
The banner is on Splyce. Fafnir is going to be the CLG selection first and foremost. Secondary, after that, we'll see where they wind up landing.
It was Hachiman before, and it'll be Hachiman again. Why change it up? This is still a flex pick towards the mid lane, I believe. I think CLG has the confidence to be able to put it there. Jigz played it very well. And Splyce kind of jumping the gun on the Erlang Shen. Now, this was the pickup for them last time, but it was near the bottom. By the way, also, Achilles made it to 9th pick overall in Game 1. Still has not been picked and banned here.
Erlang Shen is such an interesting choice. It is. I think we've only really seen Splyce go for the dog guy.
Yeah, I think that he's still in a pretty good spot. I don't know. I feel like Erlang Shen ruins backliners very well out of the jungle, so it surprises me that he doesn't see as much play as I probably think he should.
Out of the jungle?
Even out of the jungle, man. He just, when you get pinned into that 72 transformations into the one attack speed stim, you just can 1v1 almost anybody. Camazotz is one that you might have some trouble with. So CLG, these are the same picks that we've seen, but a couple move up the draft a little bit. Camazotz and Erlang Shen move up the draft a little bit. Last time it was RDO in that spot for CLG. Last time for Splyce, that was the Ganesh. So I think Splyce is looking to change up their support pick, but don't want to have to change in the jungle.
Well, Ram will be the choice for the late game hunter. One more time for Splyce. Ganesh banned out here by CLG. That's the second Guardian. Splyce, they banned out the Uller and the Athena. And at this point, you know, it's funny. They're thinking about this one right now. They are going to ban the Apollo. And I think CLG sits here and if you ban the Apollo, they go, haha, we weren't going to pick it anyway. And if you don't ban the Apollo, they pick it and go, haha, you played into our hand.
Exactly, yeah. They were probably looking to go back to it, and why wouldn't they? Last time it was Sol and Daji in that spot. CLG has already locked in the Camazotz, so you can kind of pencil that in for jungle, but keep in mind there has been a lot of Camazotz in the solo lane, but with that Odin pickup, I imagine that I honestly could see Homie playing that in the jungle and allowing fineokay to take that Camazotz into the solo lane. I'd prefer to see Homie on the Zotz, but I think that you do have some flexibility here.
You know, it's actually interesting. I repeatedly ask for Homiefe to be on the hard carries, and I think Odin in the beginning of the game is enough of a hard carry for Homie to actually bring it and transition out. Chiron will be the hunter of choice here for CLG next to Hachiman, and I think the original is Yaman, but Chiron mid is not unheard of.
So. No, it isn't. I wonder if that's where it's going to go. We have seen some Chiron in the ADC role as well, though, and we see the Chiron here because of that cleanse up against the Mez from Kumbhakarna and that Stygian Torment from Cerberus. You've got plenty of time. Yeah. You know, Cerberus stomps the ground and everyone just kind of like floats there for a second, and during that time you can just cleanse them away and make sure they don't get yanked to wherever Cerberus wants them to go.
That Chiron cleanse coming through in the clutch against the Cerberus. The Odin, however, is really going to just beat up Agni. It's one of the mages that really
Erlang as well. Erlang really has a tough matchup because that ultimate healing gets shut down entirely by the cage.
With this draft, who do you think wins?
Doesn't matter. Draft was completely irrelevant. Splyce always goes to game 3, so Splyce wins.
Also me. Tossing it over the commentators, it is John Finch and the best of tacos.
Thank you, F-Dot. Thank you, Aggro, for breaking that down for us on the desk. It's going to be Splyce and CLG going into game 2 here, Taco. And I don't want to bury the lead there with that Chiron, but yeah, Splyce does always seem to make their way into a game 3. Is that Chiron that selected by CLG this time not going to open the door for Splyce?
It could, but at the same time, there's only so many times that this might end up being successful. Game 3 Splyce, and we've said it plenty of times before, sure, they might be last in the standings, but they are by far the best, technically worst team that we have ever had, sure, I would say, in our pro league. And I just think that, Chiron aside, the Odin pick. Odin is anti-fun when you're playing Rom. And I'm not even looking at the Agni, not even looking at the Erlang Shen. All eyes on Cyclone and this Rom, because Odin just has an absolute payday against those kind of gods.
Well, who do you think is going to win, chat? Do you think it is going to be CLG who take it 2-0, or will Splyce do as Splyce likes to do and force, at the very least, a game 3? We'll find out here soon enough in this next match. But, I mean, Splyce always seems to find a way, Taco. I mean, it's hard to bet against him at this point. They've kind of earned it.
You know, we always call it, like, the Barracuda plot armor for Mixer chat never being able to vote against Barra. Well, right. I feel like that's almost the same circumstances we see for Splyce, to where a game 3 is practically a guarantee, because these guys love making it sure that it goes all the way to game 3.
Well, that's what Splyce are able to do. They're always able to make that initial adjustment, but then in game 3 it just kind of gets away from them. Not able to catch out Jigz, who did take the jump early on. So that could potentially impact the way this Fafnir wants to go. But nothing else really found there from Splyce on that early grouping as they try and find him in the jungle.
This is much better peel and frontline support, though, for Splyce's carries than what they had in game 1 by far. I think that I like the concept behind the Achilles. I think if you're an aggressive solo laner, you can usually get away with that, but trying to compensate for that peel by throwing Cyno onto the Erlang in the jungle, I think was just a little bit too much for him to handle, especially since he died early on. So Homiefe just never really seemed to be concerned about the Erlang. And I think now, though, with the Cerberus on top of the Kumbhakarna, I mean, you couldn't possibly ask for more peel.
No, it's going to be very difficult for Homie to find his way into the back lines now, Taco. And that's what Homie did a good job of. Whether it was Best or Cyclone, no matter what was going on in the teamfight, Homie was just blinking to the back line and blowing up one of those 2 carries. Now with the Kumbha Mez, the knock-up, the Cerberus potential stun, as well as his grab too, and Cyno with the taunt, if that's still available, there's a lot of tools to try and control these teamfights that much better and help Splyce out.
I do just wish that we would see Cyclone on a different hunter, though, outside of Rom. I think that an Onher or even a Hu Yi could provide a little bit better team fighting capabilities, and you don't have to worry so much about losing the laning phase super hard, because Fafnir Hachiman, that screams aggression in the dual lane. And when you're throwing in a Rom as like the god that's supposed to survive through that, it's kind of like you're handicapping yourself in a sense. And I can totally see it if he makes it into the late game. Rom has the potential to really take off as a hyper carry. It almost happened in game 1 even.
Almost.
But why take the gamble when you can go for a much safer hunter early game?
Well, CLG, Counter Logic Gaming rather, are going to be your selection there in Mixer Chat. 66%. So about the same. We didn't see much movement after game 1, despite how strong Counter Logic ended up looking. I'm always interested to see how Mixer Chat's kind of opinion sways as the game goes. Sometimes they'll swing entirely in the other team's favor based off a strong game 1.
I can see it, but I think that 33% is still sticking around, because we've seen so many best of 3s going to the 3rd match with Splyce that all things considered, and even though I think that CLG might have the superior draft here, I would not be surprised in the slightest if Splyce managed to pull this one.
Oh, you like CLG's draft better even with this Chiron mid?
I do. I love the Chiron mid, actually. I think that Chiron is probably one of the more undervalued hunters, and if you're not relying on him to be your sole physical hunter damage, I think he's great, because that cleanse is so slept on, and having the ability to just immune crowd control because of dropping a 1 out of the Chiron, that's perfect.
It looks like that's going to be the plan from Hurriwind, at least. He's elected to start with the Mage's Blessing, so really is not going to be relying on those in-hands as much as maybe like the Apollo we saw previously. Much more a bit of ability focus wants that cooldown, as you mentioned, Taco, to try and get those abilities off as often as possible.
Best as well seems to still be investing towards that Book of Thoth rush, and for good reason. I can see the power value that is provided by it. Fine, okay, gonna bird bomb. Looks like he clipped Divios with it, but considering that both these solo laners are still sitting at level 3, I don't think that either side is all too concerned about survivability.
But what is this, Taco? I mean, mage items are so good. That's all I hear anymore. Mages are so strong. I mean, it's true, they are, but we're seeing so many hunters here today. Is it a North America thing? Is it just a just feel like playing hunters thing?
I think it's week 6, and everybody's just trying to do something different.
Sure.
Innovation can sometimes be key when you're trying to find sets that you know for a fact you need, and we've talked about it a lot, that CLG cannot afford to drop a single set if they want to have any hopes of heading to the LAN. And part of that means that sometimes you just see some different strategies.
Invade on the purple buff is not going to be successful. Jigz able to confirm it. fineokay gets a little bit chunked there by Divios in the solo lane. Going to be able to make it right back, though, are the duo lane to the lane after the purple buff invade tried to go through, but not quite successful between Aror and CycloneSpin. No shortage of aggressive play from them, even with the Rama over here early.
Surprised that they would bother trying to invade, though. As far as buff secure is concerned, Cyclone with an Astral Arrow, sure, you get bonus damage, but it's not going to typically be enough to out-trade a Heavenly Banner or the Fafnir Hammer.
At burst all at once, and the Heavenly Banner is probably stronger than what Rom can provide at this stage in the game. So not able to grab that purple. That's not going to deter Homie from continuing to look for poke onto Best. They get the Aegis out of him essentially for free here in the mid lane. Best had to use it, or he might very well have fallen for first blood.
If Homie had hit the Vampiric Bats, I think we see another follow-up, or we see further follow-up possibly. It would have left Best at maybe that 10% health threshold, and considering that he didn't have mana, he probably might not have had enough to dash away into safety, so a dive would not have been the worst thing in the world.
fineokay made a bit of a rotation there since he didn't really have a wave to worry about, at least at that moment, but not going to be able to find anything, so he heads back to solo. But Taco, I mean, the more we see Best get poked out here, the more questions I have to ask about if a Warlock staff just wouldn't alleviate some of this pressure. Is he getting enough damage from this Book of Thoth to make it worth it?
I think it's just the pots that he's really struggling with the most. You've got Chiron, who's going to get a decent amount of sustain from the Mage's Blessing, although he'd probably have better mana control if he went for the Hunter's Blessing. It's just significantly more MP5 than the Mage's Blessing. Hurriwind just wants that ability damage, but Snoopy now, with a quick little Aijitsu, going to be able to avoid damage, but he won't be able to avoid the snipes.
Gonna look for it, though, as Aror, he finds it, hits him right over the top, and CycloneSpin hitting all 3 shots from the duo lane. He may not have been looking so strong so far, but he's still pretty good at hitting his abilities. That's enough to set up Snoopy to take a spill and to give Splyce first blood.
I'm surprised we don't see Snoopy trying to juke a little bit better, though. He kind of just went in the straight line for Cyclone to land up every single one of those shots. He's probably kicking himself for it, but then again, the best juke is no juke at times.
And sometimes it is, but CycloneSpin took those shots a little bit quick. Sometimes you have to, as the taunt comes out from Cyno, forces the bat out of hell in response from Homie, who's going to land back in, trying to trade out with Best, but might end up giving up his own life. The Mez comes out, Best has the rain fire, Homie falls. 2 quick kills come out from Splyce right around the 5-minute mark. They enjoy themselves a 1,000 gold lead and another easy trade.
Game 3 champs. I'm telling you, Splyce in Game 3, it's just something that they always love pushing a set to, and I think if they're able to find Game 2 here, it's almost anybody's game in that final match, because it's the momentum swing, I think, is a lot of times what Splyce tend to go for. They're just not quite able to pull it off in the end. Something always just goes horrendously wrong for Splyce when they need it most, and this might be the first time that we end up seeing them in a Game 3, and it doesn't end up working against them.
It might be, but to be fair, if we're going to use numbers to predict that Splyce go to a Game 3, then we definitely have to predict that they lose it, because that's mostly what has been happening for them. But this is what this team does so well, is respond and adapt here in the second games. I feel like what they did that changed so much is add in a ton more control. Already, the addition of Aror is helping to lock down CLG a little bit better.
And Splyce as well are just only trying to play party poopers here, if anything. CLG are already in a stars have to align situation as is, so knowing that Splyce could very well take even that last bit of contention away from them is certainly bound to be stressful in the minds of these pro players.
Playing with house money a little bit here is Splyce. They don't have nearly as much on the line as CLG do, and it can free them up to do things like this. All the damage they're putting into fineokay, taunted back, not even going to be able to get the jump off. Cyno finds yet another kill, 1-0-1, and 3 kills total for Splyce. CLG off to a bit of a rocky start as now Aror looks to try and catch out Jigz in the mid lane, not going to find it. Gets a big poke sent back his way.
To be completely fair, though, to CLG, this is not a draft that I see taking off in the early game. These are two hunters that certainly prosper a bit more in the mid to late, and Chiron, I think, is a little bit too dependent on needing a power spiking item such as Transcendence before he's really able to accomplish anything, and so that could be the reason why we see Best risking it again with this Book of Thoth, because he's not going to have to worry about as much pressure as he did in Game 1 with the Apollo pick.
It's going to be a little bit easier for him now going up as the Chiron as opposed to the Apollo. We'll see if he's able to make a bigger impact. Already is doing so with a kill for himself. Take a look at fineokay. Did want to point out, after that death, looks like they were not able to secure his blue buff. He does not have it. I believe that was dropped by Cyno instead. Doesn't give Divios a bit of an advantage, at least in the mana department. I mean, Uller needs to be able to jump and use the bird bomb to try and clear.
And that kill is also only made possible because Homiefe got so poked out in the mid lane. If Homie had been more healthy or hadn't ended up dying, I think that he would have been there in time to help out fineokay against that pressure.
Went very aggressive, did Homie, with that bat out of hell. A lot of times you see them make the adjustment, use the last swing, the last kind of swoop down to get back to safety, but went in aggressive, and Best able to stay alive long enough to turn that one around. Splyce able to find a 3rd kill for themselves. Already off to a good start, but can they maintain it? The Splyce boys as Jigz gets damaged. The Mez not quite on timed correctly there from Aror, gets interrupted by the follow-up damage from Best.
But it's just the immediate CC, though, trying to make sure that every single one of Best abilities can line up properly so that they can fully utilize some of this Agni damage.
But that makes me wonder, though, isn't the Mez going to be harder to land consistently? Maybe with the ticks
if you time it in
Agni?
between.
But, I mean, the ticks are going to be coming out, right? Wouldn't that interrupt the Mez as well as the fight goes on? Homie has to go into the bat of hell, and he does turn around this time. Not going to look to fall. Aror has the sleepy time passive. Proc Jigz finds the 1st kill for CLG, and fineokay is not done pushing forward yet. He's trying to force Divios away from his blue buff. Not this time, and the rest of CLG are here in tow. Damage coming over the top from Hurriwind, but responds with the Stygian Torment, but the cage comes down, and now there's nowhere for Divios to go. Best puts the damage on the backside. Hurriwind gets blown up, and only fineokay is looking to trade with Divios as Cyno is forcing Homie back, all the way back to base even, and finds the kill. Divios still alive, jumps over the damage, and now fineokay falls as well. Divios gets the kill, 6-1 for Splyce.
Perfectly outplayed. Divios just really stepping up when Splyce needed him to most. I think most solo laners would have just been in a full stage of panic there, fully expecting to die, and instead, Divios ends up turning it back into Splyce's favor. And I think also, shout out to Cyno on that one for getting the taunt set up, and Divios as well, grouping everybody so Bez can easily set up the bomb.
Another fight going the way of Splyce here early on. And this time they're playing a lot better. They don't have to worry about, obviously, the early start from Hurriwind as much, which I'm sure makes the task a little bit easier for them. But they're grouping a little bit sooner than CLG now. They're the ones setting up these fights, Taco.
And CLG have got to be a little bit more careful as well. Agni is all about that AoE control, and you can't afford to have 3 of your members stack up on top of each other. So spacing control maybe needing to be looked at a little bit better here by CLG.
And And they're looking for a bit of a collapse now, or Splyce. Taunt comes out, bat out of hell in response from Homie, so he does not get controlled. Ultimate down from Hurriwind as well. So those are two important cooldowns they're not going to have. Or rather, or CLG as they tried to commit. Cyno is here as well.
But they got the blink. They force everybody from Splyce back. Best is poked out pretty well here. And Divios making a very necessary
Good
rotation.
stun. Now the pin and the knockup comes out. Jigz able to jump away, so he is going to be okay. They're not going to be able to lock down the Fafnir long enough.
Thought that Mez was going to connect for a second, and that could have been problematic. But with Jigz being forced back, now Splyce trying to take advantage of the lack of vision.
Look at that
Snoopy's
damage.
nose.
That's a ton of damage we're putting on the objective. Now the rain fire will secure it for Splyce. Not a chance for CLG to step in to contest, but maybe a chance for the fight. Can't find the cage either. Splyce are on their way out, successfully taking the Gold Fury. They've taken all the early kills. Look at this gold lead already, Taco. Almost 4,000, 4,500 experience in their favor. Splyce are up to a huge early lead.
Even if they'd found the Odin cage, it wouldn't have mattered because CycloneSpin is the one who picked up that Phantom. I was talking about it before the start of this game, and that Odin is just anti-fun if you're trying to play a Ram, and well, Cyclone might not necessarily have to worry about that because of picking up the Phantom, so he'll be able to use it whenever he needs it.
He'll have that Phantom if the Odin looks for him, and Odin was looking for that blue buff as well, but to no avail. Divios came over, and even with the Odin there right in his face, able to secure his own buff. With the chunk damage from Paralyzing Spit. He's now trading very favorably with fineokay in the solo lane as well. But Pyromancer is being looked at by Splyce, and they grab it for themselves. No one from CLG was around to try and defend.
It's like a partial salty run back. 3 out of 5 of these guys are the exact same for Splyce, and yet it just looks so much better with the simple addition of a Cerberus and a Kumbhakarna.
And this, and you call it the salty run back, that's one way. I mean, it's the adjustment. They recognize that what was missing from the team comp was the controller. At least that's what it feels like from where I'm sitting, Taco. And this control has worked heavily for Splyce so far in this game. I mean, CLG, they can neither engage nor disengage. They're getting locked down.
Every promising opportunity just ends up backfiring entirely for CLG. And, well, if they're not careful, at the moment, this gold lead is still somewhat manageable. Even the experience difference is still kind of manageable, and CLG can have that contention on objectives. But if this starts going more and more in Splyce's favor and they're able to rack up another gold fury, I think that CLG might not be able to respond.
Taunt in from Cyno. Rainfire immediately responds from TheBest, and Jigz able to jump right out of there. Taunt not lasting long enough to set up any more damage. So really, it's the blink and the taunt from Cyno. They don't get that much off it, except they bring Jigz down pretty low. So they'll be waiting a while for they can find yet another initiation. Those blink ults from Cyno have been huge so far, so certainly they'll want to play around that yet again.
And it makes sense because right now the blink relic cooldown is tending to match the cooldown of the Erlang ultimate. And for a jungle Erlang as well, you don't necessarily need to use that ultimate for the end of a fight. It can be a really strong initiation tool, and I like that Cyno is using it for the initiation, although it does pose a little bit of a risk factor in that the sustain's going to pop typically when you're full health already.
It's also good timing because, I mean, they just got the Gold Fury and the Pyro, right? I mean, what are they going to be fighting over here in the next minute or two before the ultimate and the blink are back up from Cyno? Probably not a whole lot, so go for that pick. If you find it, okay. If you don't, it's okay. And now they are going to have everything back up by the time another really big fight ends up happening, and Aror and Cyclone may not even need to wait. Look how well they've got Snoopy pushed up in the duo lane. I'm going to back off here now, but CycloneSpin level 16 as opposed to Snoopy level 14.
Both solo laners just proxy farming each other's jungle, and neither side going to be able to find any additional farm as everything's been cleared up. But Divios going to blink in onto mid. He's looking for Hurriwind underneath the tower, forces out Hurriwind's ultimate, and that is still a pretty huge play there from Divios.
Now, Divios going to continue fighting it out with fineokay in the middle lane as the 3-man grouping from CLG over in duo side. They're continuing to pressure at least a little bit more into fineokay, at least chasing down as Divios, but nothing more going to really come from it. Still, this is kind of idling from these two teams as they wait for the objectives to come back up on the map. There's really not that much that Splyce want to do except see if they can find maybe some picks, and if not, No big deal. They're waiting to fight on these objectives again.
Divios is just trying to harass as many people as possible. That's all you have to do on Cerberus. Just keep them away from your team. And
right.
I think Divios has had so much control with this Cerberus pick. Speaking of which, Jigz going to be looked at for a moment as Cyno managed to land the pin down onto Snoopy, so Snoopy going to eat about half his health in return. And Oracles will go in favor of Splyce. No one from CLG really there to try and help defend. With the Gold Fury spawning pretty quickly, or pretty soon, CLG just going to have to be very wary.
And this is where things start to get scary, too. They don't want to give up another Gold Fury here, because you mentioned it earlier. This gold lead, while it is pretty big for this time of the game, CLG can still fight into it. Another Gold Fury happens, a T1 or some buffs get stolen on top of that, and then we're getting to the area where it's pretty hard to try and stand toe-to-toe with the Splyce roster on even footing. So they can't let this one go, certainly not for free, but already it looks like Splyce are at least on that Gold Fury area. Rather, it's CLG this time trying to pull it. Not going to be able to pull it for real. Trying to establish some vision control, and they have to drop it.
Well, they know that Splyce has full vision of this Gold Fury, which is why
True.
I don't expect it to be a commitment out of CLG as much as what they're trying to just draw in the fight to begin with. But Snoopy's already lost about a fourth of his health just pulling the Gold Fury.
CLG, or at least Snoopy, is on his way out. I don't know if he knows how hard they're committing to this. Instead, they're going to go for the team fight. Already the cage has come out, and the Phantom comes in response to get them away. Hurriwind has Cyno chunking him on the backside, forced to use the Aegis, but Cyclone tracks him down with the ultimate. He's done. Cyno now is the one that's in a little bit of trouble with the Stygian Torment. Controls everybody. Aror gets the last bit of damage onto Jigz. CycloneSpin finds the double kill onto Snoopy, and the chase continues. Now it's Homiefe who sets up the triple kill for CycloneSpin. They don't even need the Gold Fury. They won the fight.
Just for good measure, though, Divios still going to make sure to find fineokay on the back end, and he'll make sure to...
Right towards the big boy here. That's going to be the call here from Splyce, and why not Taco? Who could stand in their way?
Hurriwind has just struggled, I think, and that's just great team recognition by Splyce to immediately sink their teeth into this Chiron. He's probably the most vulnerable god on CLG's draft this game and doesn't have the greatest form of escape. That dash is just pretty slow and easy to catch out, and that's what's happened almost every single time. Cyno has made sure to catch Hurriwind's dash, and in the end, you're just there to absorb damage if that happens.
And you highlighted it already, but they just made a couple of adjustments to the same comp. The Rama and the Agni and the Erlang Shen. We saw those last game. They played fine. The difference is Divios and Aror on the Cerberus and the Kumbhakarna this time. It's too much control. Divios didn't even have to move. Just hit him with the ult, hold him in place, bring him right back down. It was too much damage. And Cyno at the beginning of that fight, man, the damage he was able to put in on the backside to set up CycloneSpin to find the snipes, way too much.
That early pick onto Snoopy, I think, is what changed the pacing of the duel lane so much. It was in game one, it was all about Jigz and Snoopy just out pressuring Cyclone and Aror so heavily because they got those early kills, and now it's just been a full 180 of this duel lane. Cyclone helping Aror to take out Snoopy, just automatically handed Cyclone at about a 1 to 1.5 level lead, and sometimes that's all a Rom needs to get up and running. Snoopy wasn't able to just cyberbully Cyclone during the entire laning phase, and so the supports had a lot more freedom to rotate around the map, and that's what Aror spent all of his time doing, was just making those effective rotations, and slowly but surely, Splyce put themselves in a great spot here in Game 2, and Fanj, at this rate, I'm starting to think that the Game 3 is what's going to happen.
Game 3 Warriors, as Homie is in a little bit of trouble, at least on the right-hand side of this jungle. So far, he's forced to retreat as the Tier 2 tower crumbles. I mean, something about this Splyce team, man. It is so hard to get 2 games in a row against them. It just cannot be done. And I think it's because they make adjustments like what we see from them here in Game 2. Now,
I was just going to say, the only thing I'm certain of is Splyce's standings do not properly represent this team.
Now fineokay gonna initiate. Cage is dropped, and he's forced to retreat with the Phantom is CycloneSpin. But going in is Cyno for further initiation. Hurriwind trying to find a little bit of damage, but has none. Cyclone's up in the air. No low health targets, so just puts out a little bit of damage of his own. They took the tier 2 in duo, but CLG stand on the tier 2 in mid, and it's a much harder this time around. The dunk comes in from fineokay, and Snoopy gets the last shot. Homie now looking for more damage, but already on the retreat is going to be TheBest. Potential chance to lock down Divios, but he jumps away as well. But fineokay is not done. He jumps in again. Can't find it as CLG defend.
That's a strong defense, though. To have that strong of a defense on your T2 against a full Fire Giant team when you just finished wiping, it's crazy. And CLG, they're not done yet either. 4v5, they're still willing to go in. They're looking for the T1 tower. Hurriwind's going to make sure to find it as fineokay fully controlling Best in the backside. They only had that one Phantom.
Cyno's looping around the backside, forces the Aegis to come out from Hurriwind. Can't find the last hit necessary to get that kill. They take the tier 1 tower, and smartly they go for the disengage there, Taco. They were not going to be able to find more. Defending was enough, but now Aror coming in with the blink. He forces the beads away from Homie. Can't find any more control than that, but another important cooldown he was able to snag.
Beautiful hammer stun there by Jigz. If Jigz doesn't connect with the hammer stun and prevents the groggy strike, Homie probably dies because purification beads would have worn off by the time the windup was over. He gets rooted in place, and well, with Cyno having been right next to Aror, I think we all know what would have happened next. It's just that still CLG hanging in there. They don't want to let it go just yet. They're trying to break this Game 3 streak that Splyce have built up for themselves.
Yeah, nobody lets CLG know that they're down 10,000 gold. You know how like in old Looney Tunes there's that moment where they hang in midair before they actually look down and fall? CLG are there right now where they're hanging over midair, but they haven't looked down yet, and they're able to keep standing up against the Splyce roster. No one let them know that it's this bad of a lead, or else they might all start tumbling down because Splyce, even though they've looked good so far, that Fire Giant push was not the cleanest, and CLG was able to stand toe-to-toe with them. You like my Looney Tunes?
I did actually like that one a lot. That was a
good.
pretty good one.
Thanks, Taco. I needed the positive affirmation live on stream.
Finch, you're great. You are just
Thank you.
the best, Finch.
No, the best.
But you're
is,
not the best Taco.
I'm not the best
I'll say
Taco,
that.
and I'm not even in this game. That's Splyce that has the best on their roster, and Agni. Looking good for the best here so far. Maybe mages aren't so out of style. After all, the CLG are grouping around. They're looking to potentially try and collapse on the backside. It could be best. That's the target. Dash is already down, but the 3-man stun comes out, sets up the rest of the rain fire to come through for the rest of the team. Lots of damage has been put on the Splyce as Homie comes on the backside and is able to find Best. CycloneSpin's putting out some autos, but already the foundation of the Splyce lead starting to get shaken just a little bit by CLG.
What the hell? Like, who does that, though?
Right?
Speaking of which, Aror gonna get stunned down here for a moment. Sprint has been popped. Everybody trying to go on the full retreat and get away from the CLG roster. Cyclone, though, I don't think he had the sprint on him, but doesn't really make much of a difference. He was still with the rest of his team, so that'll be enough to protect him. But more importantly, it's all about the Fire Giant. CLG are just going for it.
Wait, the gold leads are correct, right? Splyce is up 10,000 gold, but now it's CLG who are pulling the Fire Giant. Divios goes into the pit to try and contest. The CycloneSpin's here, but it's not enough. Counter Logic Gaming, they may have gotten the Fire Giant, but Cyno is the one that found the kill. Now fineokay is trying to see if he can make the full retreat. The Cage is going to lock in the dog for now. They may have lost Homie, but they've stalled Splyce for a little while longer.
I'd rather have a Fire Giant on 4 members of my team than the Camazotz. I think the Homie made the right choice there, keeping Cyno preoccupied, because Cyno could have caused a lot of chaos inside of that Fire Giant pit, maybe even knocked up some of the carries from CLG into those Fire Giant strikes, and that would have been incredibly problematic. But even when you're down, you are certainly not out, in CLG. The best representation of that fact is they still choose to fight into a 12,000 gold disparity.
Yeah, CLG are not intimidated at all by Splyce, by this lead, by this match. They certainly feel as if they're still in it, and they do not want to get taken to a Game 3 here. Not just yet, Taco. And as he finally had a bit of a lull here in the action.
But that feels like such an oversight from Splyce.
Yeah.
They should never have allowed that Fire Giant to even been looked at by CLG. Then again, you can't take away from the way that CLG chose to group and really caught Splyce off guard. The way that Splyce's backline separated from the front is the main reason why CLG were able to find the pick in that engagement and just shove Splyce away from the area, because as soon as Best was separated, he was just open season.
Initiation has come out. Rainfire is coming on the backside of Cyno's initiation, but on the backside, fineokay has dropped to the cage. Not much damage coming out from Hurriwind's ultimate. And on the backside, Aror being forced away. He's able to retreat, but the tier 2 tower has already fallen. But look to Aror to make another initiation a little bit sooner than you might expect. He does have that relic dagger. Blink's going to be up for him a lot faster than CLG might be used to, at least with those mental timers.
But CLG was just waiting for Homiefe to respawn in the first place. Until he respawned, I don't think they wanted to fight, and now that he's got a speed buff and everything else, fineokay looking to chase him down.
Good
will
pin.
get pinned out, fortunately for Best, but T2, still a very strong possibility that CLG pulls this.
Aror is going to lurk around, trying to get to the backside of the fight. Blink comes out this time, though. It's going to be from the dog. They're able to get the lockdown they need. The damage from the Best continues to be too much for this CLG team. CycloneSpin finds the last shot from the air. Snoopy is already down, and Aror going to continue to chase. The root lands on the fineokay, who doesn't have the jump available for him yet, and now comes in the damage. He gets knocked up. Finally, he's able to leap away, but the damage has already been done. Epic uppercut, gonna lead him right back into the stun. Cyclone finds yet another kill here in this team fight, and Splyce continue to surge down the middle lane. Phoenix is what's in their sights.
I think CLG finally looked down, Finch.
No!
Mid Phoenix, Cyclone chunking away at it as Divios goes for that Sinjin Torment. Will catch one, and just as quickly as he caught him, good night, Hurriwind, we knew you well. Could possibly find the killer. If he finds the killer, respawn, but he missed.
He is going to end up falling. Best finds that kill first one of the fight that was not completed by CycloneSpin. Phoenix in mid lane falls. Cyno going to continue looking for the red buff, and Homie going to come box him, but I don't think this was the fight you wanted. Cyno takes him down in the jungle. 4th kill of the fight for Splyce. The red buff falls, and CLG are reeling after losing their Phoenix in the mid lane.
That is mad awkward for Homie. I think he forgot that Cyno went for the full damage build pretty much on Erlang, and the Void Shield too. A pretty interesting pickup. He saw Cyno picking this up again in game 1, and I think that it's actually pretty useful here because he mostly just wants to focus out Homie. I think he's done a great job this game of keeping Homiefe zoned away from the team fights, and that's why we haven't seen the same success from CLG on this Camazotz like they had in game 1. Now that there's so much more interrupt being provided by the Kumbhakarna and Cerberus, it just doesn't feel as though Homie really has any time to look for the backline.
It's the adjustment we talked about. Homie last game was able to blow up Best or Cyclone, no problems. This game, it is certainly not going to be the same case. And don't forget, CLG had felt strong for a few minutes there. They'd gotten the Fire Giant. They defended a couple times in a row, and they pushed a little bit too far, I think, into that tier 2 tower, and Splyce punished them heavily for it. Now they are in control and could potentially be trouble for Homie, who gets chunked by the damage from Divios after Aror commits the epic uppercut. Homie now must go on to the retreat. But this has created all the space that Splyce will need to turn their attention towards the Fire Giant, which will be rejoining us shortly. Pyromancer, his younger brother, is hanging out. He'll certainly be the ire of the Splyce team afterwards.
Hurriwind maybe going to look to try and contest this one. He's going into the ultimate, going to toss out those shots, but it's not going to be enough. Splyce are still going to get this FG either way, and now T2 Tower and Solo going to be looked at, but Cyno instead manages to catch out Hurriwind.
Pulls him back into the bombs. The Best blows him up. Didn't even need the shots from CycloneSpin. Tier 2 Tower now being looked at by Splyce, but again, the aggression from Cyno has been so strong this game. He blinks in, looks at the pin, but the taunt is enough to control him long enough for Best to blow them up. Phoenix now the call from the Splyce roster.
Aurora gonna start tanking things first, but in a 4v5, this is gonna be rough for CLG to try and keep Splyce away from their base. They're already missing their mid Phoenix. Now they're gonna be missing the right Phoenix. Divios still pulling in fineokay for the rest of the team, and he just cannot survive this damage for much longer. He's gotta get out.
Shell keeps him alive long enough for him to escape, but the epic uppercut is gonna bring Jigz down into a painful situation. The rest of Splyce now considering looking for the Titan, and they're already chunking it half health now for the Titan, quarter health now for the Titan. These Hunters are shredding the objective, and Splyce, as we've come to know them, take us to yet another game 3 as they win game 2 up against CLG.
Well, 33% of chat remember that these are the Game 3 kings here.
That's right, yeah.
And now Splyce, this could be one of the first opportunities that we've seen this team actually win on a Game 3. And if they're able to close out this set, they will certainly play spoiler for CLG's dreams of trying to make it to LAN.
It's the last thing CLG want to see right now, but what I would like to see is who you thought was the MVP. Mixer chat, please vote for me in the poll. Ton of good candidates yet again from the Splyce roster. I mean, Aror looked great on the Kumbhakarna. Cyclone showing up for them on this ROM pick. I mean, the Cyno looked great on the Erlang. Too many good picks to name.
I would have a really tough time choosing between Cyclone and Divios here. I think that both of them were very crucial members, and they really stuck out to me in Game 2 here.
There's a good case to make for Cyno too, Taco. I don't know. I'm glad that's not my job. It's your job there, Chad. Y'all got to vote. Let's go and get over to the desk because they got to break it down.
That's exactly what we'll do. Tom and Ryan here, breaking it down for game number 2. And what a surprise. We're going to game 3.
Here we are. Splyce, lose game 1, win game 2, force game 3. That's kind of what Splyce has done all year, whether it's win game 1 or game 2. They've won one of those. It continues here. I really think it comes down to CLG's comp, though. I really, when you break down what their comp had, they had 2 hard CCs in the entire composition. So the response from Splyce is to have both Cyclone and TheBest forego any beats, no beats on the side of CLG, or side of Splyce rather, but both carries pick up the upgraded Phantom. So they aren't worried about fineokay's cage once he starts rotating into the fights. You never saw them overlap their Phantom, so he was able to, make sure that everyone was getting out. And Hurriwind is always ulting into that Phantom. So you've got that damage mitigation, meaning that the long-range damage between Snoopy and between Hurriwind just doesn't end up amounting to that much.
And with all of that control coming out from the team, CycloneSpin was able to just be CycloneSpin. Most valuable player of game number 2, a 5-1-3 with 15.2 thousand player damage. Really big stuff. I mean, you and I were asking, we said, look, the rest of this team has kind of picked it up. Where is CycloneSpin? When he comes online, this team is going to really look hot. And well, he came online.
He really did, and it has so far in this set. Even in the game 1 loss, he played very, very well. Cyclone had pressure early on, was able to dictate. This is why we see Splyce consistently fighting on the left-hand side because of that. Cyclone played very, very well in this game.
I loved that last replay we just watched because it really showed all facets of the Hunter. He goes ahead and pops up the ultimate for the long-range damage, gets a kill and brings somebody else down, rolls forward, finds an easy okie doke, and then continues with the extended sustained DPS. And then here on the backside, just making sure to keep himself out of harm's way, stay as far away as possible, and still deliver the damage.
And what was the overarching common theme between all those highlights? Cyclone full HP the entire time, was never hit in any of these engagements. It is doing a better job of sitting far back into the back line and allowing the team fight to just kind of come to him.
I mean, when you look at, he started with the Shibalanke and now he's sticking to the ROM. The common thread between those two characters is the fact that they both have extended range. Shibalanke, sure, just when he uses the ultimate, but that's a big deal, and it allows him to get a little bit closer when the lights are shut off. And then ROM, whether he's just doing it from the hunter distance or up in the air, long-range artillery, safety is the concern for CycloneSpin. When he's able to be safe, he's able to be impactful.
And he was so far in both these two games. Now, what is CLG going to respond with? Are they going to let him continue to play this ROM? He's played it, what, 6 games in a row now or something like that? Or no, 8 games in a row, because it was 2 best-of-3 sets, I believe, that he played last week. Are they going to go back to the Odin? I doubt it for CLG. I want to see some more CC from Counter Logic. That's the big thing. Smite is a game that is revolved around hard CC a lot of the time because everything is a skill shot, so you got to make sure that you can land them as often as possible. 2 hard CCs in the kit, and one of them is a Fafnir hammer, and the other is Hachi stun. Just not enough.